Sometimes in life, we find ourselves starting over, either by choice or not by our choice. I wanted to share three top tools to use when you're starting over. The first is gratitude, the second is your values, and the third is creating a filter. So let's get into the first one. I'm Patty Blue Hayes, author and coach. I wrote the book Wine, Sex, and Suicide, My Near-Death Divorce. And that was a huge point in my life where I had to start over because my marriage ended abruptly. And I felt very broken and lost and devastated. One of the first practices that I started using was gratitude because I felt like there was so much wrong in my life and that my world had just imploded. But I knew that I had perspective in that, tons of people had a lot worse off situations than I did. I had a relationship that ended. I had my health. I had shelter. I had food. I had access to medicine. I had a car, I had friends, family, healthy cats. Like I had a lot. And so it was helpful for me to focus on what I was grateful for. And there were times when it was very challenging for me to even come up with something because I just felt like I'd lost so much. But I just came up with simple things in the morning and at night, and sometimes I used the same things that I was grateful for. And there are studies that show that having a gratitude practice can actually lift us up a little bit from depressed states. If you're going through crisis mode, it's obviously helpful to do a gratitude practice. I don't know how much levity you're going to feel from that, but being consistent with it day and night and day and night. One of the things to keep in mind is to really keep it simple when you're going through a starting over phase. You've got to just cut away all the externals that aren't relevant to your current situation. So gratitude is the first practice. The second practice would be to get in touch with your values, your current values. Go to my website, you can check out the values list, follow the instructions there on your selection, and you can take it further if you want to. There's instructions on how to do that. The reason I say this is that we often over-identify with roles that we have. So I over-identified as being my husband's wife. I over-identified as being a supportive partner in a relationship. I over-identified as being part of a family in my marriage. And I over-identified with being a friend and, supportive person. You may have those same roles where now if you're not in a relationship, you're having a little bit of a crisis of identity. Well, who am I if I'm not this spouse or this partner? Or if you're, going through a job loss, who am I if I'm not, insert title of job position? Or maybe when you're going through, facing retirement. Well, who am I if I'm not, the 30-year career accomplished person? What am I going to do with my time? Who am I? Keeping it simple and getting in touch with your core values can help you focus in on just those aspects. So, for example, a lot of my routine was gone, right? I didn't have my husband to, prepare meals for or to consider about, making plans or to be a friend toward, but I still valued being supportive and nurturing. Those were some things that were important to me. And so what I ended up doing was doing some volunteer work where I was preparing meals in Los Angeles. This was at Project Angel Food. And I would prepare meals that were going to be delivered to homebound patients. So my roles had changed, but I found value and meaning and purpose in doing something that was still aligned with a core value of who I was. So see if you can, break it down into those simple terms. If you are someone who values beauty, you can just focus on creating and appreciating beauty in your life. Maybe that's, noticing things outside that are beautiful. Maybe you do some journaling reflections on that. Maybe you collect flowers or shells or driftwood, or maybe you take up painting, or maybe you paint some walls in your bedroom because you want to beautify that space. It's also kind of enlightening to get in touch with your values, and they will change over time, especially when you're going through a time of starting over. Revisit this values list in another, 7 to 9 months, because things will have changed a little bit when you're on a little more like solid footing, or at least have an idea of where, the next 6 months are going to be. But when you're in that spot where everything is just, unknown, new, unfamiliar, roles are gone, maybe this abrupt starting over came suddenly, or maybe if you just feel like it came on suddenly because you weren't prepared for it. Keep it simple and select those values and just focus on those core values. Let those be the things that you ponder. Let those be the things that you bring into your life. Let those be the things that you expand upon. The next thing is creating a filter. Your car has an oil filter, coffee has a filter, fish tanks have a filter, to filter out impurities. I have a water filter for my water here in Panama. You want to filter out all impurities. One way that you can do this is to visualize some type of protective barrier that's like maybe 2 feet surrounding you. And you can see through it. It's translucent. You can imagine it to be any color that you want, any color that, kind of feels protective and safe and nurturing for you, comforting. So I kind of envision it to be like one of those big bouncy balls, and you're standing inside of it. So it's going with you wherever you're going. Every step that you take, you've got this filter, this boundary filter out in front of you, around to the side, behind you, above you, everywhere. And you get to decide what comes in to that filter for your body, mind, spirit, and emotions. And these are big things. When you start creating a filter, you're going to realize pretty quickly how much stuff has just been like permeating an ineffective filter. But you get to decide what you're going to put in your body. Are you going to drink water, or are you going to drink wine? Are you going to smoke, or are you going to eat fruit? Sometimes you're going to pick the unhealthy things, and you just have to be okay with that if you're using it as a coping mechanism. Human beings avoid pain and seek pleasure. So give yourself a little break on that, some self-compassion. Mentally, what's going to come in? What kind of people are you going to allow to come in through that filter? Or what are your own thoughts? Put your own thoughts through that filter. Decide what the impurities are that you're going to weed out. Emotionally, same thing. Is an experience that you're thinking of doing going to create emotional upheaval? Then filter that out and don't do that activity. If seeing certain people is going to be too taxing emotionally or mentally, filter that out and don't engage with those people. This will help you just kind of, I guess you're kind of cocooning in a way, and you need to do that when you feel like so much of your life is out of control, that you need to have a feeling of like a safe space. And creating that filter helps you determine what your environment is going to be. So you just have to think ahead. Don't say yes to everything automatically. You want to switch off the automatic pilot and turn on filter mode, and everything goes through that filter. So you can decide ahead of time, what can come through that filter, right? Decide on the feelings that you want. If you want, peace, calm, security, comfort, then anything that doesn't meet that requirement gets filtered out. I hope that's helpful. I know a lot of people in January are doing, goals for the year and, starting new things and a year of 2024 in review and celebrating accomplishments. But sometimes we're going through some stuff in January and we don't feel like we can celebrate accomplishments, or maybe we've had a massive upset in our plans for getting the year off to an amazing start. So if that's relatable for you, use these 3 tools of gratitude and your values and creating a filter. I hope this was helpful.